Hello and welcome to Close to the Edge, my new channel, talking about all things prog, classic rock, heavy rock, etc. Today I'm going to talk about Andy Edwards' recent video on his 10 most overrated prog bands. An interesting video to say the least. I like Andy Edwards, I think he's a brilliant drummer, and I do value his opinion really highly. So this is my take on his top 10 most overrated prog bands. Now, his number 10 wasn't a band in general, it was new prog bands. Now, I can't really talk about new prog bands because I'm not really into them, haven't heard enough of them. He was on about the using AI and all that kind of stuff. But most of them don't appeal to me. Are they overrated by a lot of people? Probably. But I can't give a definitive opinion. Number 9 was a band called Mars Volta. Band I know very little about. I've heard a little bit about them. Whether they're overrated or underrated or whatever, I'm not going to give an opinion on that because I don't know enough about it. I'll be absolutely honest about that. So we'll move on all to the rest of them. And the rest I do know. Number 8, he said ELP were overrated and they had a short span. Maybe 1970, 73. I disagree with that. I love Works Volume 1 and Works Volume 2. Yes, it's not as good as the earlier stuff, but I do like it. And were they overrated? No, not really, no. I think they were bang on. They were an amazing band, one of my favourite prog bands. Brilliant virtuoso, brilliant drummer, bass player, singer, keyboard player. No, I have to just slightly disagree. I can see where he's coming from on Hemisphere from Hammer. The next one is a band called Two. Two is a band I don't like. I've tried to listen to him, I can't get him. And overrated, definitely overrated, but a lot of people loved him. And music is subjective, so. But I think they're way, way overrated. That's Two, but it's my opinion. Next one is Meridian. I never liked Meridian, even though I bought their album Scriptura Gestus Tier. The sound of a mix between Genesis and Genesis. Really, they were kind of a clone of Genesis. They never done anything for me. I think they're way, way overrated. I think that guy on Pete Pardo's Sea of Tranquility, the Scottish guy, he loves them. But I think he's extremely biased. I think he way overrates them. And I definitely think they are overrated. Never did that for me. Maybe they brought people back into prog, as Andy said, but not for me. Way overrated. Genesis. Took me a long time to get into Genesis. I found them very difficult to get into because I heard them in the 1980s and I heard their 1980s stuff and I didn't like that at all, and I didn't bother going back then. But I did eventually go back, and I have a few albums by him. I loved it. The live album is absolute. Seconds Out is absolutely brilliant, unbelievable. But are they overrated in the general scheme of things by a lot of people? See, I believe we all overrate bands we love. I overrate most of my bands. Tangerine Dream, Deep Purple, all these kind of bands. I just overrate them. And I have to overrate them. And actually when you look at it and listen to them, you can actually kind of see where I'm overrating them. But I still love them. But Genesis, yes, I think they were overrated. I think they came late to the party in the progressive rock world. And some absolutely classic albums. I bought the album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway on cassette. I still have it. And it took me a long time to get into the album, but it is a classic album. Selling England by the Pound, I don't think that's a masterpiece myself personally. I think Foxtrot is a better album. Nursery Crime is a better album. But overrated, yes, but brilliant. I do love them. But brilliant, but overrated. The next one is one of my favourite progressive rock bands. He said in number 4, he said Yes. And I don't think Yes are overrated. He thinks they are, I don't. Yes, the first 2 albums are not really prog, but once they hit their stride, the Yes album, masterpiece. Fragile, masterpiece. Close to the Edge, one of the greatest prog albums of all time. Topographic Oceans, I thought he dipped. I find it a hard listen, to be quite honest with you now. Yeah, Ritual is good on the live album, yeah, shows. But I think they dipped on that album in particular. You know, Relayer, masterpiece. Going for the One, I think, is a masterpiece. And he said they kind of stopped there. And I disagree with him. I think Tormato was an excellent album, and I think Drama is an even better album. Yeah, they lost their way in the 80s, but they were huge with 90125, Big Generator. And then they came back with that awful album, Union, amalgamation of the two different bands. Horrible, horrible album. Then they brought out Talk, which was similar to the 80s. But if you listen to Keys to Ascension 2, studio album on that, that's 70s prog. And the latter is 70s prog. I think they're brilliant albums. So to think that yes are overrated, no. I think yes are bang on the money, one of the greatest prog bands of all time, and not overrated. And I definitely don't think they're overrated. Then he went to Pink Floyd. Are Pink Floyd overrated? He said Pink Floyd weren't great players. Now, I'm not a musician, so I think they're good players. Are they as good as Yes, King Crimson, Gentle Giant? Certainly not. But they do the business. Are they overrated? Yes, I think they are overrated. I think a lot of people get caught up with Floyd, with Dark Side of the Moon, and Wish You Were Here. I think Dark Side of the Moon is a masterpiece. I don't think Wish You Were Here is. I think it's an excellent album, but it does go on a bit. I think Animals is a masterpiece, and I think The Wall is a masterpiece, and I think a lot of people don't like the final cut. I love it. But after that, when he left Waters, that was it. In general terms, from their first album to The Endless River, I think they're overrated, and I agree with Andy on that one. Then he goes to Dream Theater. I've listened to Dream Theater a lot. I'd like to have a lot of good albums, and people go on about how brilliant musicians they are, which they are. They're unbelievable musicians. And Portnoy is an amazing drummer, absolutely amazing drummer. But I think they're overrated. It's kind of a mishmash of prog and metal and all that kind of stuff. And they said they influenced so many bands. But I have to say, to be honest, some of their albums sound like Metallica, with prog thrown in. Overrated, definitely. Dream Theater, I agree with Andy on that one. And the last one is Rush. Now, Rush are one of my favourite bands as well, and I've seen them a good few times with my friend Kevin and Billy. And are they overrated? Well, I believe if you take from the first album to Signals, the first album is Led Zeppelin, but go from the first album to Signals, I think they're not really overrated because they had Terry Brown producing their albums. And the minute they lost Terry Brown, they lost their sound. If you listen to any of those albums, you know straight away, if you heard it, oh, that's Rush. They had a sound. Terry Brown gave them a sound. And when they decided to use a different producer on Grace Under Pressure onwards, they lost that sound. And they lost the Rush sound. So I think, but if you take Rush as a whole, from first album to the last one, Clockwork Angels, are they overrated? I think they are, but not by much. I do love Rush. I love every album up to Signals. And Signals is my favourite album. Might not particularly be their best album, but it's my favourite album. I love it. But anyway, that's just my quick take. I know Andy went into details of nuances. He's a musician. He'd know with drums. He's played in bands. He was brilliant on the Frost first album, Million Town, especially on Hyperventilate. The drumming on that is unbelievable. And he's a brilliant, brilliant musician. And he's a funny man from Birmingham. My uncle lived in Birmingham for many, many years. I've been to Birmingham. They're funny people. They have to get their wit, it's kind of a dry wit, very similar to Liverpool. You have to get it. And I personally believe a lot of Americans don't get Andy. To be honest with you, I get him. Because it's just an unusual wit. And I really do think he's doing fantastic videos. And I wish I was even 1% as good as the way he articulates, comes across I might not come across like him because, you know, he knows, he just knows. He's been there and done it. So his opinion is extremely valued, and I agree with most of what he said. Uh, Apart from Emerson and Palmer, and yes, I disagree with him on those two. And I also agree with him that one of the greatest prog bands of all time were Gentle Giant. And I must actually pull him up on the Gentle Giant one. He said that they, a Giant for a Day, they kind of, you know, brought out a horrible album, then they brought out The Missing Piece. The Missing Piece was actually brought out before A Giant for a Day. The album brought out after Giant for a Day is Civilian, which is an excellent album. But I think The Giant are one of the greatest prog bands. And of course, he mentioned the genius of all geniuses, Frank Zappa. And I think he was a level above all of them, to be absolutely honest with you. And then, you know, he's mentioned other drummers as well, which I must check out as well. But anyway, that is my take on Andy Edwards' 10 most underrated prog bands. And if you like this video, please like it, and please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I'll be interested to read the comments down below. Anyway, that's my take on Andy Edwards' 10 most underrated prog bands. And hopefully I'll do a video soon, and I might do a ranking of one of my favourite ambient synthesizer bands, Tangerine Dream, in my next video. Anyway, have a nice day, whatever you're doing. Goodbye.